Someone is attempting to review The Curse of Peladon, a Doctor Who story that reflects on the times of the United Kingdom joining the European Union in the year that we're supposed to be leaving it.
That is to be expected. Are you attempting to locate the traitors?
We're trying now. If we catch them, what would you like us to do with the fuckers?
Whoever is attempting to review The Curse of Peladon is an enemy of the Daleks. All enemies of the Daleks must be exterminated. Exterminate them. 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 Exterminate. 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 Exterminate.
Hello ladies and gentlemen, Nick here, and welcome to my review of Doctor Who, The Curse of Peladon, the second Doctor Who story of Season 9, and this is the story that is basically an analogy, I think, of the United Kingdom entering the European Union back in the 70s. So it's basically something like representing that, but in space, a bit like how the Dominators was representing the hippie movement and the Make Love Not War movement, except they swapped it round to make it look like the old people were the peaceful guys and the young people wanted to fight back against the invaders. So they got that mixed up. Here I think they've made a good point about it. Funnily enough, this year we're actually going to be leaving it, and apparently we're actually going to be leaving it on Friday the 12th of April as opposed to Wednesday the 22nd of May. Either way, we're going to be leaving it sometime in 2019. Probably before the end of June, unless otherwise said. So yeah, and if thought the bit at the end of the Day of the Daleks review was too political, then if we've got some political views to look at later in this review, then stay tuned. If not, then that's it then, I suppose. That's that. So, Curse of Peladon, the plot of this story is that the planet of Peladon is going to be joining the Galactic Federation, which is basically an outer space European Union, I suppose. And the thing is, Peladon's got all these traditions and rituals and old ways of doing things. And the High Priest is very against joining the Galactic Federation because of these. But the Chancellor is very for joining the Galactic Federation. We're starting to see some familiar stuff. I don't think the opposition had, let's say, when we were joining the European Union, I don't think the people saying, no, let's not do it, would go on to kill the ones saying, yes, let's. I don't think we're doing that, and the same with the Brexit, whether the guys saying we should leave, they don't go and kill any of the remaining leaders. Thank God. So, yeah, Hepish, the High Priest, kills the Torbis, the Chancellor, or has him killed anyway, probably by Agador, because he's against it. But the meetings go ahead anyway, and eventually Hepish is trying to sabotage everything to try and get everything done. Try not getting it happen, making sure Peladon stays out of it because of the spirit of Agador would attack them, and just basically out of his beliefs. He's also teamed up with one of the aliens who is trying to get his own private deal. And it turns out that the alien is, spoiler alert, Arturus. That little weird skull creature with the funny robotic voice. And a big chesty thing. It's this guy. On the right. On the right of the Ice Warrior. This guy. Yeah, he's the villain, along with Hepesh. So, he's trying to do his own deal. But hope comes to Peladon's aid when the Doctor and Joe arrive, brought by the Time Lords, although they don't realise it till later on. And they try and help the best they can to sort out the Peladon's problems, along with its other fellow delegates. Arturus, seemingly, and alongside Alpha Centauri, who is supposed to be a male character, but sounds like a female, and the Doctor says it's... I think he implies that it's supposed to be a mix of the two. There's also the Ice Warriors, who make their first appearance since 1969's The Seeds of Death. This time they're a bit more peaceful, and they've joined the Galactic Federation. However, the Doctor is suspicious of the Ice Warriors because he's met them before, and Joe's also suspicious when blame is tried to be put on the Ice Warriors, and it's revealed that Hepesh tried to plant things in the Ice Warriors rooms to make them look like the ones behind the problems called problem causing. He also attempts to have the Doctor executed for entering a sacred temple, even though the Doctor doesn't mean to do it. So Hepesh is just trying all he can to sabotage this, and it would work, but I don't know, it's just not quite working out. I mean, there is this sense of mystery, but you can kind of tell Hepesh is the villain. He's manipulating Grant in the first 3 episodes to be doing all of this, but Grant sides with the Doctor to help stop Hepesh and bring Agador, show off Agador to everybody. And yeah, episode 3 feels like a bit of meander, as the Doctor is forced to go up against Grant in a kind of a one-on-one in a fight to the death or something. It's just meanders, and he's just kept in his room a little bit. I mean, it's going to get worse in the next time we come to Peladon. It's going to get worse, but just in this story, it just feels like it's meandering a little bit in the middle. Part 3, especially Part 2, it does a little bit, but not as bad as Part 3. What I will say is the interactions between the other delegates are really good, and I really like how the Ice Warriors are actually starting to look more like allies in the latter half of the episode, especially in Part 4. That's how it's all really good, and how the delegate and sub-delegate are just actually pretty good guys, in all honesty, and it's just really good. The cliffhanger in Part 1 is actually pretty good, and the Doctor is able to, when the Doctor saves the delegates from a falling statue of Agador pushed by Grant on the orders of Hepesh. It all looks good, and I would say David Troughton does a good job as the King, and the guy playing Hepesh is good. There's going to be a guy in the Monster of Peladon that, in the sequel of this story, that I absolutely despise with every fibre of my body. But Hepesh, thankfully, his personality is actually pretty good. He's actually a good character, so I can actually see where he's coming from, and actually maybe even think him as a misunderstood character. Though the fact that he does like, oh, I made a mistake on his deathbed, that's like, okay, that's just come out of nowhere. And maybe the fact that Agador he just realised Agador was just killed him. Maybe that's what sorted him out, but oh well. And how he's able to organise a civil war is I'm not quite sure. He just basically he realises his plan's been realised at the start of the episode, and just tries to run off and try and organise a war, a battle. I guess it's Plan B. And the fact that it's a 4-part story, and the fact that Part 3 mostly focused on the Doctor being forced to go into this match, and the delegates talking, and Hepesh trying to get the Doctor to get out, and then making it look like he's escaped and having him hunted down, but the Doctor finding Agador and coming back. And then we get to the match. It's just meandering a little bit. I mean, apart from the Agador stuff, that was good and important to the story, where the Doctor finds out what Agador really is. But other than that, it's just a bit meandering. So when we come to the Civil War plot, it's not really given much time to develop that spot. I think despite I like it being 4 parts, but I don't really think this story should have been any more than 5 at least. I think maybe the 5th episode would have developed the Civil War angle, maybe Peladon's getting divided a bit more, a algorithm for the UK, possibly at some, certainly at this time of recording, how the country is split between decision, and how maybe we should all come together in the end, or maybe the people who spread the lies will get punished. In that case, it won't be algorithm for now, I suppose. Oh dear, because both sides have been left, right, and all over the place, and I don't mean politically. I mean, with being truthful and lying, mostly lying, but also mostly cocking stuff up. Why do you think we're in the situation we are now? If you're watching after the situation, why do you think you're in the situation that you are in now? Unless it turns out to actually be good, in which case, well, at least something good came out of it. And if not, well, we're screwed. But as for the time, I suppose it was pretty split, and there were lies and truths and all that. So, I suppose it's an algorithm, but... But you know what, we should have had more of that. We should have had more of the split decisions, whether we should or whether we should not. But instead we meander a little bit in the middle, especially in part 3. Apart from the Agador stuff, it just feels meandery. It just... I don't know, I can't get down in my system. And part 1 is going by very quickly as well. Part 1 goes by quickly, and not in the same way as Colony in Space Part 4, where that was actually some good stuff happening in an otherwise awful episode. There's an awful story. Or in Day of the Daleks, where it was just a bunch of fun action, sci-fi, thriller, adventure stuff. No, it's just getting everything out of the way, I suppose. I mean, getting all the introductions, all these delegates meeting, the murder of Torbis, the Doctor and Joe on landing in the building, going through some tunnels, getting captured. By the way, Hepish, Joe, women not being of... women having to be of royal blood to enter the throne room. Yeah, maybe you should tell the guards to check who the prisoners are before they're brought to the king. And same with men of title. So before the prisoners are brought to the king, maybe you should check who they are first. Otherwise, they could be executed for something that they didn't do. At least not intentionally or yeah, it's something the guards did. And the same goes for the temple sacrifice. What if the Doctor didn't know about it being sacrilege, not the sacrifice, the temple being off limits to everybody but certain people, and it's punishable by death with no defence. That's the only option we can do apart from the fight to the death bit. That was the only alternative. You really ought to let people know this. I suppose in that second case, Hepish wanted them, the Doctor, to be executed, but still, maybe you should sort out some of these laws, Peladon people, and with the first case, they didn't even know they were there, so why did the guards just bring him into the room? Why say, Your Majesty, we have got some prisoners, they're waiting outside, we haven't asked them who they are. Do you want them to come in, or shall we ask them who they are first in case they're not the people who are allowed in? And if not, do you want to come over and talk to them from just inside the room and they just be outside? Yeah, Peladon's got some strange rituals and laws and stuff. It's almost as bad as those ones from the Holy Terror, an audio that I reviewed for the Universals recently. Except in the Holy Terror, it was actually a bit more enjoyable, and it actually made a lot more sense in the overall plot. That one, I miss Frobisher. As for the cast, as I mentioned, David Charlton does a good job with his role. I think this is Katie Manning's best performance in the show so far as Joe. John Pertwee continues to be amazing as the Doctor. The guy who plays Hepish is actually pretty good. Like I said, I can actually stand Hepesh and see where he's coming from, and I actually find him a pretty good villain in all things considered, despite some hiccups, especially in Part 4, where we should have had a little bit more on the Civil War stuff and the planet, or at least the guards, divisions of the guards being divided. But despite that, I think he's a pretty good villain and a pretty good character. In the case of the second point, unlike the Chancellor, High Priest, Advisor, cunt that we see in the Monster of Peladon, who's by the Queen's side in that story and dies in Part 5. He gets better as a character in Part 4, but he then dies in Part 5. So I'm sure I mentioned this in another review or video at some point, but he becomes... I think it was my sad clone, actually, when he was talking about him. Chancellor Orton, that was it. Chancellor of fucking Orton. But he's not until the Monster of Peladon, so I think he's a terrible character. But, so thankfully, Hepesh is not him. Thankfully, Orton wasn't even a villain. He was antagonistic, but he wasn't a villain. Or at least, not the same way as the actual villains, anyway. Or in the same way as Hepesh. So, I prefer a villain to a antagonistic, but overall not really the main baddie character. So, yeah, I can tell how well that's going to turn out. We're going to, like I said, we're going to get to that in just over 2 seasons' time. God, when we get to that, I'll be looking forward to Ark in Space. And also the voice of Alpha Centauri, she does a good job. And great to hear her back in both Monster of Peladon and later in Empress of Mars, when Alpha Centauri gets an amazing cameo. I say amazing, it's pretty fan-pleasing. I'm not the biggest fan of these 2 stories, but it was amazing to hear Alpha Centauri back in Empress of Mars, and it ties in with these stories pretty well. In fact, Empress of Mars was going to have a line about how Peladon leaving the Galactic Federation, and it was going to cause a crisis. But the line was either not filmed or it was cut. It was certainly cut from later drafts. But it would have been a nice little in-joke to what was happening with Brexit at the time, similar to how this story is similar to us joining the EU in the first place. So I expect that took years. I thought it was 75 we joined, and this was 72, so maybe it took us years to actually join it, just like it's taking us years to leave it. It's funny how history has a way of repeating itself in one way or another. And finally, I'll say the production design looks pretty great for the most parts. Costumes also pretty decent, and it's overall it's decent. It's not terrible. It's nowhere near as bad as its follow-up, and also I think it's also a better Ice Warrior story than the first Ice Warrior stories. Is it better than the Seeds of Death? I'm not actually sure. I think Seeds of Death was a better story. But I am liking the new angle of the Ice Warriors in this story, and it's a shame they didn't explore that further with Monster. They trick us to think that they are staying the same, but it turns out, oh no, they're bad. It's a rogue group, and they're baddies. Whoopee. So, yeah. So, Curse of Peladon, wrap things up. It's a pretty good story, pretty decent, enjoyable story, and yeah, it's alright. I'm going to give it a 8 out of 10. Not amazing, but it's still pretty good, and it's got some fun moments and decent story, and possibly it's definitely second best Ice Warrior story, if not best Ice Warrior story of the classic era, and one of the better Ice Warrior stories of the show overall. And I mean, it's very close with I think it's right behind Seeds of Death, in which case it's second best Ice Warrior story of the classic era. I'm wondering whether I would put Empress of Mars above Seeds of Death or not. I think it's above this. Cold War, I would think, would be below it, would be above the other 2 classic Ice Warrior stories, and the 2 unmade stories that would have been in season 23 and season 27. I'm not sure about it. I'll have to check out the Big Finish adaptations, or at some point. see how they would have gone down. But somehow the and also the Lords of the Red Planet audio, which I think has all this backstory with the Ice Wizards, with all their honour and backstory about it, that would have been incorporated into later stories, such as some of the other Big Finish stories and the New Who stories, featuring the characters, and maybe with those these season 23 and 27 scripts. I'm not sure. Maybe, but certainly with later other Big Finish audios and in the 2 New Who stories. So that's it from the Curse of Peladon. Thank you for watching this review of it, and I hope you didn't get annoyed at the political stuff that much. If you were able to stomach it, thank you very much, and thank you for watching this review. It's going to get back to non-political stories next time. Next time we'll be looking at the Sea Devils. Oh, hang on a second. No, this is political, because it's the exact same political stuff as we saw in Doctor Who and the Silurians. Should we share the planet with aliens or non-humans who were living on the planet before us? It's like I want to say it's like immigrants, an allegory for immigrants, but I don't think it's right. Either way, it is political, and season 10's only going to get not 10, and season 9's only going to get even more political after that. Good grief, this is the political era of Doctor Who, and some people think Series 11 is the most political. So anyway, next time, the Sea Devils, and it will feature the return of the Master. Ooh, let's see how this plays out. I already know how it plays out, I've seen it before a few times. Anyway, I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye. Don't forget to click below to subscribe to the official Nicholas Payne Retro YouTube channel. And however Mars, yeah, as I miss Shrovish. But never mind. But despite that, I still think Hepesh is a pretty good villain. I think he's also a pretty good character. But in the case of the second one, why am I making so many mistakes? So, and also Yaz. Who voices it? Not amazing, but it's okay. It's good. Hang on, start here. And they think Series 11 is. Someone is attempting to review The Curse of Peladon, a Doctor Who story that is basically representing similarities to the United Kingdom entering the European Union. Where the guy's doing it. Fuck. I was so close. We're trying now. If we find them, shit. We're trying now. We're trying now. If we catch them, what would you like me to do with the fucker? Try again. We're trying now. If we catch them, what would you like us to do with them? We're trying now. If we catch them, what would you like us to do with the fuckers? Okay, so you've got two alternative takes. We're trying now. If we catch them, what would you like us... We're trying now. If we catch them, what would you like us... We're trying now. If we... Curse of Peladon done.
Exterminate! 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 Exterminate!